Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Oh my gosh, we're on episode 12 of Stars Align already. It's kind of weird. I don't know how to feel about it because it doesn't feel like the series should be ending, right? On the one hand, we ended a series of matches in the last episode and we're up against the twins. So we're up against the twins in what could be the last match of the tournament, or if they win, they go on. I mean, at this point, they've already won the match they needed to, right, to stay funded. So I feel like the stakes are kind of off on that. Like, however this match ends up going, it's okay. So I don't know how to feel about that, but I feel like we've just started, and this show feels like a 24-episode show. It feels like it's set all of these things up with these characters, and they're going to get touched back upon later in the series. But there is no later in the series. So it's really sad. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm going to pull up there's a fan epilogue, right? There's a fan-made epilogue, and I'm going to react to it along with this episode. So I've got to pull it up before we start. But I feel really conflicted because I feel like the creator set up some really cool dynamics and some cool plot threads to get touched back upon. And obviously they're not going to be because this is the last episode. So when I started out this series, y'all told me, you were like, it ends early and it ends kind of on a weird cliffhanger. So I was like, So I don't know what that's going to be, but I could definitely see that happening because especially if the creator didn't exactly know that it was going to end and not get picked back up. That's so frustrating. But yeah, so in the last episode, Toma and Maki, they finally won a string of matches. We won matches. Ergo, we should get funding from the student council. The student council were even there to watch. Rintaro, his real biological mom, watched the match, and we didn't get confirmation of what was going on there. Toma's mom's acting weird. Ryoma was mentioning something about, I'll protect both my brothers. When was there a third brother? Is it Rintaro? I don't know. I don't know. I'm so curious. It's like all this drama being set up and we don't get a resolution. But this series has been so good so far. And so I'm excited to talk about it during the live stream. I think that I'm going to do the live stream on Sunday. I'm going to put a community post up. I think I'm going to do the live stream on Sunday, like at 10 a.m. So it's going to be a little bit after Bungo Stray Dogs comes out, but it's going to be like in the morning sometime because I know some of you are overseas away from the US, and so when I do night streams, you guys are like, it's 4 a.m. here, and I'm like, crap. So I'm gonna probably do like a 10 a.m. stream, and we'll talk about Stars Align and about other sports anime that I've watched or are watching. So it'll be kind of like a little sports anime live stream, mainly to talk about Stars Align, but we'll incorporate other sports anime in there as well and kind of talk about that so far moving forward. But I'm not ready, y'all. I'm not ready to end this series. It's been so good so far, especially from episode 7 on. Like, the first 6 episodes were good, don't get me wrong. Like, they were engaging and learning about soft tennis and the dynamics of the team and Maki and his deal with his dad and getting that kind of resolved. That all was great in the first half. But this second half, when we've gotten into the other characters and gotten into these like broader, deeper themes and themes that I think shows should be talking about, especially with younger audiences, I've really liked it. And it's like 7, 8, and 9 were really good. 10 and 11 were good. So I was like, this season just got really, really good. And then now it's ending. Sad days. Sad days. I've noticed on Funimation where I'm watching it that they do like little ratings for every episode. And every episode in this series has 5 stars. And I think that's pretty good. And I definitely agree that this series is like that. But so yeah, we're going to watch episode 12. And then I've been told that there's a fan-made epilogue that was fan-made that we're going to watch afterwards. So there'll be that. So I'll get it queued up here and get that ready to go. But with that being said, okay, so let's do this. We are going to start Stars Align episode 12 here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. We started this series with the post-credit scene giving the most tonal whiplash that I've seen in an anime in quite some time. Until this episode. And we ended the series with the most tonal whiplash I've ever seen in an anime. What the hell? Are you kidding me? No! No, no, no. Nope, nope, nope. I'm head right out. I can't. Show, why did you do that? Show, why did you do that? You didn't have to. No, here's the thing. You didn't have to. Why did we go down this road? Why did we go down these roads? Why? You didn't have to do that, Show. You really didn't have to. Here's the thing. This is the problem. You didn't have to do any of those ending scenes. You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to do it. The whole thing with Mitsu, yeah, sure. That resolution, I feel like her story gets resolved in some ways because Mitsu finally realizes that she's creating art that she enjoys, that she finds pride in, that she likes. And so she's posting it online, the artwork that she cares about. And with that artwork, yeah, it's not getting as many likes or retweets or whatever. And people are like, well, why is she making this art? This isn't the art that I know her for and blah, blah, blah. But then the resolution is she sees all those negative comments and it doesn't matter. Because what does she do? She goes right back to the program and keeps coloring and keeps drawing. She keeps doing it. She doesn't care what they think because it's what she likes and it's what she's pursuing. So I feel like with that storyline with Mitsu that, yeah, Mitsu's character has grown so much over the course of this series. I'd argue that Mitsu's character has changed the most. Like, she started out the series, I didn't like Mitsu at first, if I'm honest. I didn't care for Mitsu's negativity, and I thought she was just like a negative person and was just like really apathetic. And I was like, man, you're just like a Debbie Downer. And then we get to know Mitsu more, and we realize that she has a lot of like issues of self-worth and conflicting ideologies about her and what she should do with her life. And so you get to know her more and more. And so you empathize more with her. And then as the series goes on and she becomes friends with Maki and becomes friends with Yuta and all this, you see that she slowly just starts to blossom and everything. And she changes for the better. Like, she becomes, like this episode when she cheered for them, I was like, that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for Mitsu to become that person that cheers them on at the game. Like, that's what I was waiting for. And we get that in this episode. Up until the last minute, this felt kind of like the last episode of a series. And so I was like, oh. And so the whole cliffhanger thing, I was like, the whole cliffhanger aspect, I was like, I don't get it, because they face the national champions. So on the one hand, I was sitting here watching this going, this is kind of like the perfect end of a series, right? Because they faced the championship pair, the twin brothers. They lost to them. But you know what the thing is going into this final match, they really had nothing to lose. Because at this point, I'm thinking of all the plot threads that we didn't get resolved. So one, we didn't get Rentaro resolved. I honestly thought that the mom was calling Toma at the end to tell him that she went and saw his brother's game. I thought that's what she was going to call and tell him. I was like, oh, Rentaro is his brother. Because there is a visual similarity in the animation between Ryoma and Rentaro. I was like, okay. But no, that's not it. So we don't get anything finalized with Rentaro. We just know his biological mom came and watched his match, but he doesn't get to see her. So I could see that have gone on. If the show went on, I could see that have happening. Okay. We don't really get any more with Itsuki and his sister, but that thread, I feel like that plot thread was kind of abandoned. We just got it for that one episode, and then it was dropped. So it was like, okay, we could have gotten more with Itsuki and his sister, but we didn't. They could have gone back on that. We don't really get much more with Now and the mom. Now puts the phone away, and I guess you could take it as Now finally realized that he was going to live his life and not constantly be trying to talk to his mom 24/7, and him putting the phone in the bag and her keeping on calling. And then when it goes back to her in the previous episode, she was like, I'll let it go for today because it's his match. I'll let it go. So I guess that could be viewed as a resolution with Now's plot. I kept thinking that she might come back and try to complain, but that doesn't end up happening. So it's like, okay, sure. So there's that. But otherwise, I mean, other subplots, the whole incident with Ryoma's team, we never find out what that is. So I'm curious to know what was the incident. We never find that out. And I guess that's just a non sequitur. It doesn't matter at this point because it doesn't matter because the twins, I was really frustrated with the twins at the start of this match because they were saying, you're not Ryoma. Why? You're not his brother. I really dislike, and I dislike it because it's very true to life. I hate the sibling shadow trope because it's a real trope. It happens in real life all the time. One of my friends in high school had an older sibling that was really good at basketball, and she was constantly in her sister's shadow all the time. And her sister was like the perfect child, like the it reminds me a lot of like Olga and Helga in Hey Arnold. If you ever watched that Nickelodeon show Hey Arnold, Olga's like the perfect child, like the perfect, like works at an orphanage, is academically smart, and Helga's like in her shadow all the time and just doesn't care. It kind of reminded me of that, but Toma does care. That's the problem. Toma, true to life, Toma, like many siblings do, they do care that they're in their sibling shadow, and they want to stand out, but they also want to be as good as the sibling. And so when the twins say that, it's so frustrating. But I loved this episode and this match because right off the bat, Maki and Toma are like, let's just have fun. Like, we're not expecting to win. Let's just enjoy ourselves. Like, we're in this prelim match. We've made it this far. We're against the national champions. We got nothing to lose, right? And they've already won a game. So that kind of concluded the council subplot because they've won multiple matches now and the council saw them win. So I'm sure their funding is going to be fine. And I'm sure that word's going to, if the series went on, I'm sure word would get out that they faced a champion team and nearly won. And so that would keep their funding. So I get that subplot being wrapped up. The incident plot kind of meanders and goes nowhere, but that's okay. Mitsu's subplot kind of gets resolved in a way. Yuta's plot doesn't get resolved. We have the whole thing with Yuta's mom. That doesn't get resolved. And so I'm a little sad about that. Like, I would have liked to have seen, if this series kept going, I would have liked to have seen Yuta kind of embrace that non-binary or transgender side to him, or gender fluidity, whatever it ends up being. And I would have liked to have seen his friends support him, his teammates support him, and his sisters support him, and that be like something that he can say against his parents, like against his mom. He's like, no, there are people that care about me, that support me in my decisions, so, you know. So we don't really get resolution with that. We don't get resolution with the council member, with Kaori. We don't get resolution with her and her mom. But then I guess you could argue it does kind of get resolved because she has the diary and she's like, this is who I am. And so it's implied that she's going to change her name and go by this. Shingo, his whole plot, I mean, it doesn't really get resolved with his family. And then Tsubasa doesn't really get resolved, but we kind of get, when they had that talk at the park, back in episode 9, it kind of resolves it, but kind of not. I really wanted to see, what I would have liked to have seen if this series had gone on would be for Shingo to stand up for Tsubasa against his dad and be like, no, Tsubasa's a really good soft tennis player, and if you came to the matches and saw it, you'd agree. And so I wish we could have more with that, and Tsubasa kind of making his own claim against his brothers and his dad. And then Toma and Maki storylines. We didn't need that show. We really didn't. We didn't have to have that. No, I wanted to know what the mom was talking about, and so the whole thing is she's getting a divorce. She's divorcing her husband. Fine. I felt this entire series like the mom has been projecting all of her frustrations onto Toma, and that she wasn't in a happy marriage, and that she cared about Ryoma, but not Toma. And we can argue that Toma looks like his dad. Maybe that's why, that she sees them together. So she's like, I can't be around you. We don't know much about the dad, except that when Now talks about his father being, or when they talk about Now's father being absent, we get the impression that Toma can relate because his dad's not there either. So I felt like they were setting up, they're like, when we first started seeing it, I was like, okay, here's the cliffhanger. They're setting it up that Toma is going to go live with his dad, so he's not going to be able, maybe at the same high school. He's going to have to move, and that's going to cause a big drama. So I figured, okay, that's going to be the cliffhanger. And then she says, I don't want to be around you. I'm done with you. I'm like, take salt and rub it in the wound. Why? That was unnecessary. Unnecessary melodrama. Like Toma, and here's the thing, Toma was like so happy. And he was talking to her and they were having a good conversation. And he's like, we almost won, but let me tell you about it. And he was so happy. And she just took the knife and gashed it and just poured salt in the wound. Like, what? Mother of the year, you ain't. Like, what? There was no need for that. None at all. And you know what else there wasn't need for? That end scene with Maki. What the hell? I'll go back to that. I was like, and then of course Toma's frustrated. And then Ryoma's like, oh my, and we don't see Toma's face, but he looks so, you can tell he's like super sad. And like you can just tell he's just super sad. And it's like, well, of course. And then Ryoma, it's like, where you been, buddy? And then here's the thing. We have Maki running home to tell his mom about the match and everything. And telling them, and he's like, he's home. And her shoes are gone. But Sho is there. And he sees the glass broken. And he's like, oh, that's dangerous. Like, why is there glass all over the floor? And then sees Sho. And so there's the money. And he's like, where's my mom? So here's the thing. We don't get an answer to the question of where the mom is. And the money's gone. So I'm like, either the mom's not home. It's like one of several things. Either the mom isn't home and the dad showed up and threatened Sho. And Sho gave him the money. And we don't know by threatened what happened because Sho looks upset. So we don't know what that amounts to. Or two, Sho's mom was home and he hurt her, or something happened and she left because she didn't want Maki to see her. Or she didn't want Maki to see her like that. Either way, he came, he got the money, and either he did something to Sho or did something to Maki's mom. One way or another, something happened and he got the money. And Maki sees it. And then the show, like the color scheme changes to like this demonic red and orange and the thunder and everything. Like this show takes a turn. Takes a dark ass turn. And he goes to the convenience store. It looks grim as all get out. Buys the damn cooking knife. And nobody would question it because Maki's been buying stuff to make food this whole time. Nobody would question it, right? And then we get Mitsu's thing. But then... And so clearly Maki knows where the dad is. And we go to the apartment. And there's liquor everywhere. And he's got the cigarettes and the computer and whatnot. I'm like, how did you afford 2 monitors? I can't even afford 2 monitors. How'd you afford 2 monitors, Dad? Been stealing all their money to buy a sweet setup. I'm like, but what? And he just got the cigarettes and the vodka. And he says this can't go on. And then goes up there as long as he's alive, which we established that he said he'd kill him. But I didn't really take it crazy serious like this. With the damn kitchen knife. And then... But no, we'll never be friends. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, but... And he says he's ending it and he smiles. Why do you smile? Why? I'm like... I don't want to think that the rest of the season Maki would be in jail for murder. Sho, no! You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to go there. It's like the biggest tonal shift. I don't like what it's implying. I don't like what it's implying at all because Maki. I don't like what it's implying at all because Maki he went from like being kind of like showing tendencies like his dad and everything to like we just had a match where he was so chipper and happy and everything was going great, and now he's gonna murder his dad. Did it end because the studio was like, well, we can't show a kid murdering his dad, that might go over well? Wow, I'm torn. Usually 11 to 12 episode series I've watched. Yeah, and here's the problem. Like the other series I can think of where the ending I was kind of torn with was number 6. I was a little bit torn with number 6 ending, but there was a manga it was based off of, and so I went back and read the manga and was like, oh, okay, well here's what they did, and this is why the ending was different, and I could justify it, and it made sense. I was like, okay, well the manga and the anime have different endings, but they're similar, and I get why things happened the way that they did. And I could justify it, and it felt like closure. I was like, okay, closure, cool. There is no closure with this, and I don't like it. I'm someone that when I start something, I want to finish it. Like some people have asked through YouTube or Patreon, they've been like, so if you started a series and you didn't like it, would you finish it? The answer is yes. There's a soapbox I'll do in the future that will prove me wrong and prove me a total hypocrite, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I'm usually someone that even if something's bad, I will finish it because I want to talk about it and I want to analyze why it's bad and the reason of it. Like I've sat through many movies that have been terrible, but I've not left the theater or stopped the movie because I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to see if it pulled through. The sad thing about this is there is no manga. There's no light novel. There's nothing it's based off of that I know of. It's just ended on this horrific note and giant tonal shift, and we don't know what's happened. I'm like, what if he took the knife and killed Maki? What if he did that because he was drinking? What if Maki did kill his dad? What if he injured him and ran away? We don't know. I hate that. I hate it. I was really in love with this episode. Like the match was so good. The match was so good between the twins. Like the idea of the heat rising and they've been playing all day and the cicadas and everything and the idea of the cicadas and then molting and the twins. Like the twins keep focusing on those cicada sounds. And that's like the cicada like molting and becoming anew. Like you felt like these twin brothers, they kind of like came together and them slapping each other across the face to like snap themselves out of it. Like it was a neat gimmick. It was cool. The tracking shots, the animation, like you could feel it, and just the energy was the vibe was so good. Like the last episode 11 in this episode, the vibe was so good. And then for whatever reason, I was like, show, I get that you're ending at 12 episodes when you meant to be like 24. I get it. You didn't get a chance to wrap up all your subplots. Fine. If they had ended on Toma's subplot, that would have sucked. And I've been like, oh, we don't get to find out what happens. But with this ending and like murder being on the line and we don't get any resolution, I don't know what to do with it. Damn, that's conflicting. That's so conflicting. I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel because I loved this episode up until that last minute and I was like, why are we doing this? And then it just ends. And I'm like, why is Maki smiling? Maki has been such an endearing character this whole series. Like Maki has been a support for Yuta and a support, like a friend for Mitsu and a support for all the teammates, all the characters. And I'm like, Maki, I get that you're conflicted and that you're upset that your father is being abusive and stuff, but like there are ramifications to what you're about to do. Like you went to his house. Like it's not like if it had shown the dad coming in. Here's the thing. If they had shown the dad coming in at the ending here and the father showing up and the cliffhanger was like Maki grabbing the knife from his own kitchen and threatening his father with it. I get that because that's self-defense. And that's Maki defending himself. And if that's where the series ended, I would have been frustrated because I've been like, I want to know. But I would have been like, okay, well, if Maki defended himself, then he has a chance, you know, if he's ever put to trial or something, he'd be like, it was self-defense, and he'd get off, and then his team would be there and all this stuff. But this is Maki literally going to his house to kill him. It like turned into a horror film in the last 30 seconds. I wasn't ready for that, and I don't like it. Because, yeah, it's premeditated. He bought the knife. They could trace that back. It's premeditated murder. And I get that you're like, yeah, your dad's abusive, and you want it to stop, but then it's like the mom, and we don't know the circumstance of exactly what happened. Show. Why are you doing this? Yeah, but leading up to this episode, just the animation was great. I got really excited that they were carrying on to the 5th match. I like that Arashi showed up, and Arashi was like, oh, really? They scored? Like, everybody was watching. It was really cool. There was one wonky bit of animation where everybody's faces were kind of weird, and I was like, but it wasn't distracting. And then, but yeah, the match was so good and so heartfelt. And then, like, that moment where they're, like, looking at each other like soulmates into their eyes, Toma and Maki, and I just want the world for them. And then, at the end, their souls are crushed. And I'm like, Sho, why are you doing this? Well, why did you choose violence? You didn't have to. You woke up and chose violence, but it wasn't necessary. And Taki was getting all into it. I don't know. I feel bad for the creator because the idea that he had a 24 episode vision and it didn't get to see fruition, that's so frustrating. And when it ends like this, when there are clear plot threads that we know aren't being resolved, but they could be if they had more time to flesh out, that's the frustrating part too, is that there's so many little threads that could go on that have been set up in these episodes to get resolved in the latter half. With Itsui, with Itsuki, with Rentaro, with Shingo, with Tsubasa, with Yuta, like those, with even Mitsu, like those 6 characters, like there's plot threads set up with now 7, even Taiyo, like all our side characters have plots that are being set up in this first half of what could be a 24 episode season. It's set up in the first half and you're like, yeah, you could totally have extended it and made more out of it, but that didn't happen. So then what do you do, right? But this whole thing with Maki and Toma, yeah, I could see the resolving of Toma's thing if they carried on, but I'm like, what were you planning to do with Maki's storyline? Where was that going? It almost just feels for shock value, and I don't like that. I'm not a fan of shock for shock's sake, gore for gore's sake. If stuff is just for the sake of it, I want there to be a purpose behind it and a reason. Like, I can watch really gory anime and really gory stories if there's a reason. If it's just gory to be gory, I'm like, ew, why? Who would want to watch that? I know that there are people that want to watch that, but I'm not one of them. So if there's gore, it needs to have a purpose. If it's to give weight to a death, sure. If it's to give emotional weight to a moment, sure. If it's to establish how brutal something is, sure. If there is a reason behind it, I'm all for it. But if you're just doing it for melodrama's sake and to needlessly create tension, I'm not so much of a fan of that. And I feel like the ending here is tacked on, and it didn't need to be that way because it's such a harsh tonal shift. It's almost like it's for shock value. Like in the first episode, the shock value is justified because it's setting up the tone of the show. And it's setting up that Maki has a messed up relationship with his dad, and his dad is a source of conflict. And that bleeds throughout the show. And I get that they're tying back to it here. I just don't like the idea of, one, Maki going to his house to kill him. I don't like that idea at all. If it was self-defense, I would understand it better. It would fit more with Maki's character. But 2, that smile that he gives at the end, that smile like robs Maki of so much of his innocence and so much of the character we've come to love for Maki. If Maki, I wouldn't have liked if he had gone to his dad's house to kill him, but if he had the knife and he's like, this has to stop, and he was serious, and he looked remorseful but determined, I'd be like, okay, we're doing this. But Maki's character thinks it. But the smile makes it seem like he wants to do it, and it's like that seems so against the character that's been set up the last 12 episodes, and I don't like that at all. The comments are going to be fun, I'm sure, down below. I'm sure y'all are going to be like, I'm really curious to know your thoughts about this episode. I am so curious because I was like 75%, 80%, 90% in. I was like, this episode's actually really good. And it feels like, because I could see why you would end it at this point based on the match side of it, because they faced the champions. So it's like, where do you go to from here? They face the national champions. So who else can they face that's going to be as much of a challenge, right? So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You're going to end it here, end on a high note. They did their job. They won the matches, sure. But then to add this stuff at the end, it almost taints some of the greatness that came before it. And I just get so frustrated by that. Especially when it's such an extreme situation like what we're left with, you know? So there is a fan epilogue that is 3 minutes long. I had it under my save for later category on YouTube. I saved it under my save for later, and so I've pulled it up now. That was fan made. The thumbnail looked pretty good. I was like, for fan made. So we're gonna see what that looks like. God. What do you do after that? So maybe the fan thing just skips the whole rest of it. That'd be great. That'd be great if it did. So let's see, shall we? We're gonna start the fan thing here in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Okay. I hope they just forget the whole ending of episode 12. Is this it? Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. So I guess we're just gonna do the ending and then add on to it. I put in, someone sent me a link to this, so I like that it's like, this is the ending that you wanted. Of them all together and happy, not about to commit murder. Oh, I love that scene with Tsubasa. It's one of my favorites. Showing us this happy moment. Okay. Oh my god. Oh! Oh. This is like 2 years later. I can't read Japanese. Oh, it's Rentaro and Yuna. Oh! And Tsubasa's arm. Oh! And Shingo. Okay, Nitsuki. Is Toma gonna visit him in jail? Oh, and now. Oh. Why? But why?
ほっとけばいい。あいつはもう俺とは会いたくないだけなんだ。
I can't understand, but
ダメだな。
probably piece it together.
センスがない。何度同じミスをする。これ以上続けても無駄だ。もういい。他のやつを探す。
Toma. Are they in high school, I'm guessing, since it's 2 years later? That's not it, is it? Are you kidding now? It can't be. Why? Why? Because it's suggesting that Toma and now are like self-inflicting harm. No. That didn't make me feel better. I thought watching it would make me feel better. Like, oh, here's some fan-made closure. No. I mean, Maki's still alive, so there's that. Ah! Guys, oh my gosh. This is the first series I've watched on this channel where I'm so frustrated with the ending. So frustrated. Holy cow. I mean, I don't regret it. No regrets. No regrets. If Attack on Titan's tossed anything, it's no regrets. But I don't regret watching this series for a second. Because I feel bad for this series, if anything. I feel bad for it because it's like, I feel so bad for it because it's like, you know, this series has so much potential. It has so much potential and could be so good. And it just needs to be able to breathe and have... I feel like if he'd been given 24 episodes, then... But I don't know. I don't know, because this match, where would you have gone to from here? Unless the second half dealt more with the kids' problems and solving them and things like that. But where it stands, like I've not watched a series on this channel yet. And I've not really watched an anime that I can recall where I was really, really frustrated. I say that. I've read manga that I've been really frustrated with the ending, but that's a whole different discussion. But on this channel, at least since I started it, I haven't watched every series I've watched on this channel. I've been satisfied with the conclusion. I was like, awesome, cool. That's how we're ending it. Fine. And it's bittersweet because you want it to still go on. You want it to keep going, but you know it's reached its ending. And it's like, okay, well, it's better to just burn out than fade away, right? I'm like, I'm glad it's just ended over. It ended on a high note. Great. But this didn't end on a high note. It just ended. And it's so frustrating because you see all the potential this series has, and then it just stops in the worst place. And you're like, what do I do with this? And there's no answer. That's the thing, right? There's no answer. I mean, it's just the creator being like, I really want to finish the series and nobody's giving me funding. And it's like, that's so frustrating. Like stomach growling. I'm really curious to know your guys' thoughts down below. I'm very curious to know your thoughts, to know what you all think. Because like I said, this is the first series I've watched on this channel where the ending has very much frustrated me. And I don't know what to do with it. I feel like I'm just dangling on the edge of a cliff. I feel like I'm on a ride and I can't get off the ride. And it's just perpetual. And that's so frustrating. Okay. Cool beans. So, yeah, like I said, we're going to do a live stream on Sunday and talk about this. I'm going to ask patrons to give me questions about the series to ask and talk about. And then I figure since we have a short series like this, what I'll talk about is I'll definitely talk about Stars Align some more with those questions for Patreon. We'll talk about how it compares to like other sports anime that I've watched and have seen before. And then I want to definitely talk about the series that I'm watching after this, which I'll talk about in the live stream as well. It's going to start next Friday too. And then go from there. But man, how about that? So yeah, I don't regret watching this show because I feel like the issues that it touched on were very important, especially episode 8, especially episodes 7 and 9. Like I feel like the character trope subversions, the things talked about, the relatability of its characters and the characters having to deal with their home lives not being perfect. Like I feel all that is important enough that I'm glad I watched this show, especially episode 8. Like that episode like cut me to the core. I'm glad I watched the show for that. It's just, it makes it worse because I really liked this show and now it's over and I don't have that sense of closure. And so that's really frustrating. Very much so. So we'll talk about it in the live stream some more. I'll answer questions, and then we'll talk about sports anime in general, about the new series I'm doing after this, and just go from there. So I hope you can make it Sunday. It'll probably be around 10 a.m., but I'll have a community post about it on here, so you can go check that out. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you for watching Stars Align. Thank you for voting for Stars Align. I know that this was actually a poll that I had on Patreon, but the Patreon poll itself was all the shows that had placed second. And so this show and the show replacing it were both second place shows. They tied. I did this one first. But I wouldn't have even I wouldn't have even known about this show if y'all hadn't told me here on YouTube about it. Because the only reason it was on the polls to begin with was because everybody had been saying you need to watch Stars Align. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it placed second, and that kind of led it from there. So without y'all telling me about it, I would have never watched this show. And I'm so glad that I did. So thank you for that. I'll be thanking you again on the live stream, but thank you for that. And I'm excited to talk more about it, but I need to process, especially after this ending. So, but in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back real soon to finish talking about Stars Align. Bye.